And we're live. Welcome everybody to week 3 of the 2020 version of the eTourism Summit. Normally we'd be all together meeting in person, but this year we've got 21 days of amazing content focused on winning in 2021. And if you all remember, we started with the macro level economics with Sarah Quinlan, kind of went to the tourism industry statistics with a great panel 2 weeks ago. And we kind of evolved through the marketing planning process to help build a marketing plan to be successful in 2021. And we've got an amazing panel today with not only Valerie Bradley and Ed Harris, but with our amazing partners at Expedia Group Media Solutions. So I'm really happy to welcome Matt Hanson to take the charge here, because we're really today talking about how our target market has changed, how our consumers have changed, and how we can find them and reach them in real, meaningful, and effective ways moving forward. So with that, I'd like to thank you, Matt, and your entire team at Expedia Group Media Solutions, and turn the table over to you.
Well, thanks, Will. It's really great to be here. Can you guys hear me okay? Just give me a thumbs up. Can you hear me okay?
Sound good, Matt. Sound great.
Well, good morning and good afternoon to everyone. I just wanted to tell you that I really appreciate the opportunity to be part of, this year's eTourism Summit. Truth be told, this is the first time that I've been able to attend, both virtually or in person. So really happy to be here. As Will mentioned, we're going to be discussing how your target traveler has changed and how you should plan to reach them during COVID. I can tell you from what I see on our side that the funnel is definitely not empty. It just looks different. And we're trying to figure out what's new and how to expand that audience and reach new segments. So we'll talk a little bit about that today. But obviously during COVID, we've all been figuring out how to deal with a lot of challenging things. For example, I was just telling the team that we've got e-learning. If you have children at home, I can't promise you that there won't be some sort of interruption here because they're all downstairs. I told them to be quiet. We'll see what happens. We've got limited youth sports, limited professional sports, a lot of social restrictions. But hopefully, on a positive note, hopefully you guys have been able to take some road trips and discover some new destinations that maybe weren't on your radar before. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But it's likely your destination has a different audience than what it did before, possibly more of a fly market, less of a drive market, more international. But depending on your destination, that's definitely changed quite a bit. We know that travelers are more concerned about safety more than ever. They're willing to drive further, and they're willing to drive more often. So that creates an opportunity for us. I just wanted to mention before we jump into the presentation, we're a bit limited to what data we can share, as you could expect in a forum like this, just being a public company, having shareholders, that kind of thing. But historically, on the Expedia side, we're typically used to looking at search and booking data on more of a year-over-year focus or by seasonality. That's kind of out the window right now, and something that I'll recommend to you. Just let's look at week-over-week data. That's going to show the green shoots, the momentum, the confidence in the traveler, and that is something that we can share with you on more of a one-on-one basis in a different environment. So, as Will mentioned, just a formal introduction. Again, my name is Matt Hanson. I'm the Director of Business Development here at Expedia Group Media Solutions in North America. Look at us as the digital advertising arm for brand Expedia. My team oversees about a third of the country. That includes international air, programmatic advertising, casino and gaming vertical, and a very significant focus on destinations, airports, and hotels. I've been with Expedia for the last 5+ years. It's been a really good experience for me. And I spent the last 15 years of my career pretty much working with different OTAs, helping them expand their advertising and distribution channels. So most likely, you guys are familiar with who we are. You're probably working with some of my colleagues as we speak. But as I mentioned before, Expedia Group Media Solutions is the digital advertising arm for brand Expedia. Look at us as more of the digital real estate. We manage all the digital real estate across the sites, everything from email, mobile, social, targeted banners, custom content. The list goes on because we've been developing products to reach consumers throughout the entire funnel, especially during COVID. But I think the best way to look at us is really as a two-sided marketplace. We're connecting advertisers with travelers across all of our travel brands. And we're really able to do this pretty efficiently and effectively. This is really tied to the first-party data that we have access to. We're able to layer that into targeted campaigns and effectively help you guys reach the right customer at the right time with the right message. So it may be surprising that that we have over 200 websites globally in 75 countries in 35 different languages. For those here in the US, you're going to be more familiar with the ones here on the screen, which are Expedia, Hotels.com, which are the two largest here, Orbitz, Travelocity, Hotwire, Cheap Tickets. And then new to our portfolio over the last year is Vrbo, which is vacation rentals. I would say that we have a pretty unique position in the marketplace, though. You know, we're a global media publisher, but we're also an e-commerce company able to transact. So it gives us more of a complete view, I would say a pulse of the consumer journey as things evolve, whether it's before, during, or after, good times or bad times. We're more used to the good times, but definitely the last 6 months have been a bit challenging for all of us. So to start, as we do with everything, I would say in our industry, we look at data, especially here at Expedia. Expedia Group has more than 300 petabytes of proprietary first-party data. That's kind of a new term for me. I used to say billions, but as we know with data, it's growing exponentially. So they come up with new terms to kind of explain the size. But this really helps us show traveler intent and demand in real time from all of our brands around the world. So we're going to dive in to take a look at some of those trends at a directional level. So we know that travel searches continue to fluctuate. I would say earlier this year, the drop in travel started due to restrictions around the world. For me, that literally happened like on March 13th. That was really the last day that I was able to go into our Chicago office. And I just felt different that day, and they pretty much closed everything down from that point on. I know it was earlier in other parts of the world, but we know that Expedia Group's branded sites are shifting more to a week-over-week focus. And this slide just shows the percentage of change week over week in searches broken out by region. You can see that North America is in yellow, teal is APAC, blue is EMEA, and green is Latin America. Overall, though, we started to see increases in May that peaked in early July before trending back down, and then rose again in early June and early August. These fluctuations are due to the constantly changing situations and perceptions in each of the regions. And I just wanted to say it's still important to really look at this data on more of a week-over-week basis. But one thing that has remained consistent over the past couple of months is the search window. Starting in May and especially in June, we could see that a majority of people are searching for trips within 21 days. So a little bit shorter than what we're used to. It makes sense, though, I think. I think people are living more in the moment, and that maybe is a good thing for us. But over the last couple of weeks, we've seen this trend start to soften. I think that's probably tied to the end of summer travel here in the States, as well as in Europe, with consumers starting to consider longer-term travel, some more inspirational opportunities, more of that dreaming phase. This next chart really just dives into domestic versus international searches globally. As you can see, domestic is yellow and international is teal. There were a couple times recently where international searches were really actually outpacing domestic, which was pretty surprising. That happened in April, early June, mid-August. But for the most part, domestic searches skewed higher overall. And just a reminder, this is a global aggregate, so it's going to be different for your region. But I can tell you that here in the US, domestic searches were at 94%, and only 6% were searching internationally. In France, it was 50-50. And in Mexico, 72% were searching for international trips, which I thought was pretty interesting. So understanding traveler sentiment, along with our first-party audience data, we also, as most of you know, we conduct industry studies and we share those out with our partners to understand the how and the why behind traveler decisions and trends. I think kind of connecting the dots between the first-party data and the sentiment help us really understand our consumer. We recently did a survey with a remote research firm called D-Scout to identify the latest travel sentiments during COVID-19. And this study asked travelers to tell us about their upcoming travel plans and explain what is driving their decisions when it comes to booking future trips. And this research focused on travelers who had a leisure trip already planned or booked for the latter half of 2020. It focused on both survey data and video testimonial. And again, when we combine the first-party data with this sentiment information, it helps us paint more of a real-time picture. So in this slide, let's start with a snapshot of what a typical holiday looks like during COVID-19. As our first-party data shows, on the left-hand side, 3/4 of planned trips are domestic. I don't think that's too much of a surprise to most of us. Almost 2/3 of trips for the second half of 2020 will be traveling by car. So I hope you guys like your kids, because that's going to be part of it. Well, just over half of the trips, I would say, will involve a plane, and that could be a combination of flying into a destination and then renting a car, for example. We can see that 59% of travelers are going more than 500 plus miles from home for leisure trips. That is a combination of that light blue bar on the right with the green bar. And personally, I can tell you that this applies to me. I took my first real road trip this summer in a very long time because we typically fly. But I drove single-handedly 1,828 miles by myself. I can tell you there's a lot of crying. There's a lot of stuff. I was crying mostly. A lot of complaining, but I brought earplugs, listened to some podcasts. And at the end, I was pretty happy with what happened. I got to talk with my kids more than I ever have. Just a different experience, and we turned into a positive. So we're going to take a look at what those trips involved here in the next slide. Unfortunately, right before we started, I think we may have some technical difficulties with the video, so we're probably going to have to skip that. But I know that we're recording this, and if you guys want to see what the testimonials are saying from real users, real travelers in real time, I would encourage you guys to download the presentation. We're going to play through this and see what happens. But the pandemic has kept many of us from really our loved ones. That's the theme that really stood out for us during this research. That's with both the survey data that we collected as well as the video testimonials that we're going to show you here today. And when we asked the reason for their next trip, I would say that 29% stated that they were taking a family leisure trip, followed closely by 28% that were traveling to visit family and friends. That doesn't seem too surprising to me. But the video testimonials offered a unique window, again, into the thought process behind those decisions. And then that helps us cater to the travelers in that current climate. So unfortunately, I don't think that this is going to work very well. So we're going to skip through it. So we'll move on to the next slide, which looks at the attitudes towards accommodation preferences. And no surprise to see that in the immediate future, travelers are not comfortable staying, or are comfortable, I should say, staying with family and friends. Depends on the family and friends, I guess. Closely followed by vacation rentals and then chain hotels. The graph on the right, which should be appearing now, shows a slightly longer view over the next 2 to 3 months. And we can see a expected return to chain hotels and resorts, as well as.
What? Did you get through to?
You still there, Will? we'll keep going. As I was saying, over the next 2 to 3 months, consumers will expect to return to chain hotels and resorts in greater numbers. And that's really, to me, about messaging out hygiene protocols. I just experienced that when I took my trip down to Florida. I stopped in Nashville, stayed in a big chain hotel. They did an excellent job in kind of communicating the hygiene protocols. But we can see here that vacation rentals can expect even greater demand. Almost a third of respondents claiming that they would be more comfortable booking a trip over the next 2 to 3 months using a vacation rental. So on the subject of vacation rentals, this is a response from one of our participants that was reflective of the research that we pulled in. My future accommodations will be very different as they will be more secluded and private. I don't want to be around a lot of people or large crowds. And that's exactly how I felt when I took my trip to Florida. We rented a Verbo on the beach and just wanted to kind of stay to ourselves. So to get in front of the new segment of travelers, smart options, I would say for brands, destinations, is to focus some of your marketing efforts on reaching the alternative accommodation sites, whether it's us or any other channel. But Verbo's audience is heavily skewed towards this segment, making it really a perfect place to engage with travelers that are looking to book travel in the near future. And to me, this is a big opportunity for the destinations because from our research, we know that vacation rental opportunities increase as far as how long they stay is 4 times higher than hotel accommodations. And they also spend 6 times more, creating an increased economic impact. So we're going to look at another, I don't think we're going to be able to see this video, but looking at transportation now, the graph shows the primary mode of transportation for leisure trips before and after COVID. And as you can see, I'm going to toggle back and forth here. Changes in the bar graphs. You can see where the focus has changed. As you can see, the likelihood of traveling by plane drops dramatically, whereas the role of the personal car is over 2 times as great. I think we can all feel that. Interestingly, the likelihood of travelers renting a car for a leisure trip is 3 times higher than pre-COVID levels. And to me, this represents a pretty big opportunity for the rental car companies. So we're going to take a look at the sentiment behind this behavior, which we're not going to probably be able to see here because the video is not working. So we'll skip the testimonial. You guys can catch up with that later. This next slide looks at how comfortable travelers are with the idea of air travel within the next 2 to 3 months. This slide was not surprising to me at all. Only 16% of travelers feel comfortable traveling by plane, while almost 50% are uncomfortable with the thought of taking to the skies. Really, no matter what your status is, we're just not ready yet. But over a third of the travelers are uncertain or indifferent. And this can create an opportunity for marketers. You can partner with airlines, airports, and of course the destination to help reassure customers that this is an opportunity in the future. I think we have one more video here that we'll skip through. But essentially, safety and hygiene information is unsurprisingly critical to travel decisions in this current climate. In reality, it's probably something that we never really thought much about before. But above all else, travelers want to be reassured that this is a safe way for them to travel. And that is something that you can incorporate into your messaging. Just skipping through that video. So really, as an advertising business, we want to know what kind of messaging would help reassure travelers. So we can see from the data and the testimonials that you guys probably could not see, that health and cleanliness are important to travelers at this time. Almost 90% want to see health and hygiene information from brands. I would say almost everybody does, right? But that is followed by information on attractions and activities that are open for business, special deals and discounts, and opportunities that are off the beaten path to avoid those crowds. And as I planned on going back to my Florida trip, those are the things I really did dig into. I wanted to figure out how could we stay away from the crowds, what attractions and activities could I enjoy on the beach, renting a boat, jet skis, that kind of thing. So these are the types of things that you should weave into your advertising and marketing efforts. So now we're going to look at kind of the impact on OTAs and what role they play. The research that we're able to pull in is that travelers are really turning to OTAs more now than ever for inspiration, planning, booking. We spent the last 20 plus years establishing ourselves as a pretty trusted resource. And I think a lot of people look at us as just a resource to capture existing demand. And that's true to some degree, but we also influence and inspire as well as consumers kind of go through that traveler journey. Nearly half the respondents turn to an OTA for inspiration and over 70% for planning and booking. We know that more than 90% will use an OTA to book travel in this environment. Again, illustrating that trusted resource and an opportunity for you guys to reach the masses. So since April, we've been running a weekly Intercept survey on Expedia.com. That's one of the beauties of having access to first-party data. And that really was just to help understand what people are coming to our site for and really understanding what stage they're at. So not surprisingly, in the beginning, a significant percentage of those coming were to cancel, change, or check on their planned trip. That's in the yellow and the green bar. That number has declined significantly for obvious reasons. Less being booked means less cancellations. People were also visiting our site to dream about their next trip in the light blue. This was the largest segment and doesn't let up by any means. Finally, I wanted to call out the shopping trend, which is the dark blue. This is consumers who told us that they were moving through the marketing funnel and traveler journey, beyond dreaming and onto the stage of conversion. And we can see that that's increasing steadily as well. So these insights are important, I think, to help us really evaluate what we advertise. But the question on advertisers' minds today is still, right now, how can you reach the right traveler? And travel advertising is an early and important piece of destination and travel industry recovery and an early indicator for the broader economy. So whether that's inspiring travelers, educating them, driving demand, the more we know about their thoughts, their needs, the better we can deliver opportunities to them. So what we've done is we've created some opportunities on our side based on the shifting sentiments, and we have some products that we're going to talk about here for a second. As most of you know, we offer a variety of targeted display placements here at Expedia, and they really help catch the attention of the travel shopper with imagery and messaging. We recently launched media on Vrbo for the first time, which is what our team manages. And it's already proven to be a great success for our partners that have participated. We do know that the research that we've collected, that travelers are planning more domestic trips. They are traveling closer to home, and they more likely choose to travel by car. And this is especially unique about the Vrbo customer and the audience that they appeal to. More than 65% of Vrbo bookers travel to their destination by car. I would bet that that's probably a little bit higher right now. As I mentioned earlier, travelers who book vacation rentals tend to stay longer and spend more, just greater economic impact. This example on the slide here on the right-hand side is Martin County. They advertised on Vrbo with display placement and included the following message: escape the crowds. And as you can see here, it featured beautiful imagery of their beaches. We're going to move on to another product, which is our co-op advertising. Obviously, we know that budgets are very limited and tight during this pandemic, and many marketers are having to cut back on their advertising spend. So we offer a pretty robust co-op advertising solution to address this. Essentially, co-ops allow advertisers to pool funds to further expand marketing budgets. And I can tell you that Expedia also offers a match element to enhance that further. And what we do is we typically focus on a key theme or message. It's typically a call to action. And this allows participants to enter in at a much lower cost and get much more out of their campaign. And when brands pool their dollars together, they can just make a bigger splash. An example of a co-op campaign here is with the Atlanta Convention and Visitors Bureau. I would say as it scrolls through, alongside the destination, we do all the heavy lifting for these campaigns. We get the hotels to participate, the attractions, even in some cases, airports, airlines. We load the offers, we gather the deals, we build a targeted plan, we design a landing page, we track and share the performance from a room nights perspective. And we can also layer in that first party targeting. So looking at those that have previously searched a destination, those that are currently searching a destination but haven't booked. We can look at competing destinations. We can layer in third-party data like family travelers. And this really just helps convert bookings to those participants. Next, we're going to look at native advertising for a minute. Native ads register approximately 18% higher lift in purchase intent. They blend into our sites, which is nice. And we don't oversaturate our sites with too many advertisers at one time. So when you're trying to engage travelers in the discovery phase, your imagery, your messaging, they matter and they stick out. So you can drive awareness with these highly visual native ads and inspire travelers to your destination. And we're going to see an example of what that looks like on the next slide. So Travel Spotlights, some of you may have heard of, but it's created by our creative partnerships team, which is our in-house ad agency. And it's really our newest product to kind of address COVID times. Travel Spotlight is a variety of flexible solutions, including articles, suggested itineraries, things like quizzes, and the list goes on. But in this recovery environment, this is a great way to educate consumers on what is open, accessible, and what is available to travelers in your destination. So we're going to take a look at a quick example of an Avis budget rental car campaign that targeted domestic travelers. So here, as it scrolls through, Avis Budget wanted to showcase 6 of the most inspiring U.S. road trips. Definitely something I could have used during the summer for my travel. It's really driven by beautiful imagery, interesting content. And the site integrates reassuring partner messaging and encourages customers to embark on a road trip. So we're already at the end here. I just wanted to touch on a few key takeaways based on the slides that we covered so far. I would say this to any destination that wants to learn a little bit more about what's happening during COVID. Lean on OTA partners for real-time data. This is going to give you an opportunity to really understand your current market conditions. And as I mentioned early on, we can do this in more of a one-on-one environment, and we can share a lot more detail verbally with you. I would say update your messaging and focus on domestic travel. You know, I said earlier that 94% of search was domestic. And then lastly, I would work on capturing demand at every stage of that customer purchase journey. I would also not look at year-over-year data or seasonality as much. Let's hone in on that week-over-week data to gauge consumer confidence. So just want to thank you guys. Appreciate your time this morning, this afternoon. I believe that we're going to move into the panel discussion at this time.
Will, we can't hear you.
Sorry about that. Matt, thank you so much for that great information for you and from Expedia Group Media Solutions. Very much appreciated. A couple of questions I have. But first, Valerie, I'd like to introduce you. You've been great one of my favorite pandemic meets over the course of the last few months. So if you want to just give a quick introduction of yourself and let everybody know who you are and who you're with.
Yes, my name is Valerie Bradley. I'm Vice President of Marketing at Visit Macon. We are where Soul lives. We're about an hour and 15 minutes south of Atlanta. So please come and visit when you have the opportunity.
Awesome. And Ed, an old friend and a big deal with eTourism Summit in years past.
I don't know if I'd say that, but I'm happy to be here. Thanks, Will. My name's Ed Harris. I'm the new president at Discover Lancaster. We are roughly 90 minutes outside of both Baltimore and Philadelphia here in Pennsylvania. And Matt, great presentation. I learned a lot from those slides. I was taking a lot of notes. And thanks, Will, for inviting me.
Absolutely. So I think, again, Matt gives us some really good 20,000-foot view of understanding that our travelers have changed. And it's my expectation that all consumers have changed over the course of the last 6 to 7 months in terms of not only kind of who we are, but what we prioritize, what we want. I loved hearing about Matt's 1,800-mile family vacation. Have Valerie, you or Ed taken a vacation or taken a trip in the pandemic era?
Yes, very similar story. My family and I, we traveled to Florida. Same thing. Look for a place where we could socially distance, as far as renting a house, and definitely finding those places where we could be separate but still have fun as a family. So definitely similar story to Matt's.
Yeah, and for me, I haven't fully relocated yet, so I have about an hour drive to my office every day. So I've had the family up in Lancaster quite a bit, as well as heading over to the beaches in New Jersey. And I do think, as much as people are making the best of being grounded, this difficult period is reminding people the importance of just boosting your mental health and even personal growth and just continuing on traveling in a safe way.
Yeah, I agree totally. Matt, I had a question. Looking at the data saying that the booking window is down to 21 days, with all the changes in airlines and cancellation fees and everything like that, in one of our conversations earlier last week, the suggestion was made that the booking window is more like 5 days and in and 3 months and out. And so that's collective data. Is that something that you're seeing as well? It's either really quick planning or really long-term thinking?
Yeah, I mean, the search window is 0 to 21 days, which definitely is shorter, but the booking window is 0 to 6 days. A lot of growth there when we look at year over year. And then as we move beyond that window, I would say beyond the 14-day window, it really drops off dramatically, all the way up to 90 days. So I think that's kind of expected, but definitely it's an opportunity for markets to capture opportunity with a short window. So if you can, I guess, adjust your messaging, whether it's a call to action offer or something along those lines with some hygiene protocols in that messaging, I think that's going to be important to capture more of that audience.
And Ed, when you're kind of working on your, building a whole new plan, a whole new team, and all that, are you and Valerie, are you both seeing that from your hotel partners and attraction partners that decision making is happening very, very last minute?
Absolutely. I think the feedback that we've gotten from our hotels and attraction partners, as Matt has pointed out in the research, and what they've heard from people who visited those properties and attractions, is that it's very last minute bookings and interests and visiting. And so that has confirmed what we've been doing as an organization as far as our marketing and advertising. But absolutely, that's been the feedback that we've been getting from our partners.
Yeah, same here. I think Valerie said it really well. The only thing I would add to that would be, I think Matt hit it on the head earlier, talking about the importance of looking at data week to week where you can with your OTA partners, because the old days of month to month and even quarter to quarter don't really work right now. As we all know, none of us here have a crystal ball, but that's where, in times like this, to be able to rely on companies like, Expedia are huge, because they're the experts, right? They're going to give us guidance. They have access to the data. And in a world where, there are a lot of unknowns, I highly recommend in giving these types of companies a serious look.
Well, that's a good endorsement to a great partner. So thank you for that, Ed. I appreciate it. Matt, when you're going through the data and you start to see some green shoots, are those changing? I mean, clearly people are starting to venture a little bit further out now than they were, just a few months ago. Are you seeing more green shoots coming across the country?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it changes every single week depending on the region that we're looking at. Hopefully you guys can hear me still with my audio. We have a task force that we have internally at Expedia that runs almost like a playbook every single week to figure out what's happening out in the marketplace, whether it's super region all the way down to the markets that Ed and Valerie are in, to better understand what is happening week over week. And that is, we're super busy right now on our side because we're over communicating with our partners, whether it's a destination, attraction, airport, you name it, because they want to know what's happening every single week. And it kind of gives us an opportunity just to communicate more often with those partners and let them know what we're seeing on our side. And they know, they certainly know, like Ed and Valerie certainly know what's going on in their markets, but it's nice to tie the two together because our perspective might be slightly different. There might be new feeder markets that they weren't thinking of. And we can pull data to showcase that so that they can readjust their marketing campaigns to hit, I would say, feeder markets that weren't on their radar before.
So Valerie, how have you adjusted the markets that you're actively targeting, kind of in this summer, fall, going into the winter?
Yes, so we have taken an approach of really honing in on outdoors like so many other destinations have, and then also advertising our music product. We have great music heritage and history, but also attractions that people can visit now. So really finding different ways, beyond just the drive market, really trying to focus in on those travelers using different vendors that have been able to help us pinpoint those travelers who's expressed interest or who may have visited here, and really targeting those, based on zip code and other things of that nature. So really trying to focus in and be more targeted, knowing that some of our resources are limited in that regard, but really doing it in that way.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Ed, how about you?
Well, for us, we're fortunate in the sense that we do have a visitor center attached to our offices. And so we're trying to listen very carefully to the pulse of the visitor out there right now. And when they come, to Valerie's point, they're looking for that outdoor adventure. Many of them want to support local. And so they're asking questions about small towns and main streets. They're asking questions about the culinary scene, knowing that the restaurants need support right now. And even in Matt's presentation, he talked about, the idea of family bonding and visiting friends. And so that is in lockstep with what we're hearing from the staff in our visitor center that people are looking for right now. And I think, when it comes to the messaging piece, I think people have been hearing this over and over again, but, prioritizing the health and safety practices. It's not just the right thing to do, but it's actually one of the keys to giving those tourists confidence to return and come to your destination. So, we're trying to do that as well in our visitor centers, make sure everybody feels comfortable.
Yeah, to echo on what Ed said, we're doing the exact same thing with a citywide Making It Safe pledge and a dedicated website to direct people to who, can support those businesses who sign the pledge. And we have many businesses who are coming on board every day. And also having people to be able to sign the pledge as well, to say, hey, I want to make sure I'm doing what I can to make sure our local businesses are able to stay open during this time, because we know it's so important.
Yeah, and we're seeing study after study now coming out telling us that, people are responding very, very well to understanding communities that have and demonstrate not only in their, in their communities, but in their marketing, that they're taking it seriously. And the masks and everything has clearly become a really big deal, and is going to be for quite some time. I have no doubt. Hey, Matt, quick question. Jack Wirt down in Naples, Marco Island, and the Everglades had a question. I think this is really interesting, because the research is driving that people think that, people are going to react and travel more as a result of deals and discounts, yet the destinations and the properties and attractions are trying to maintain kind of rate integrity. Do you have any insight on kind of how to balance and how destinations can balance, instead of fire sales, but creating demand on the other side with other things other than rate?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you guys are looking at any rates these days, the rates in general are pretty low for the most part. So it's not like there needs to be a fire sale. I think it's more about outlining the uniqueness of the destination, the attraction, the hotel, whatever it may be, and really focusing more on that. I talked a little bit about this co-op opportunity that a lot of destinations get involved with. They sponsor it, and then they get 15, 20 hotels to kind of take part in that. Attractions also get involved. And we have like a themed offer as an example. It might be X% off, but we don't force those hotels to really promote or sell that specific offer. It's really just an effort to get consumers in the door to take a look at that market, maybe something that they haven't considered before, because we, in theory, we've layered on some targeting that makes a little bit more sense because we're seeing additional feeder markets. And that way, the hotel can promote whatever they want, as an example, or the attraction can promote whatever they want at any rate. But you got to get them in the door first, right?
Well, we can't hear you.
Will, we can't hear you right now.
I think he's agreeing with me.
Sorry.
Nothing yet. Yeah, he's probably just dialing back in.
Right.
Well, Ed and Valerie, you guys can hear me okay, right?
Yes.
I was just going to chime in to say that, I know a lot of the points were pretty directional in nature. I just wanted to encourage you guys, if there's interest in kind of doing a deeper dive, we can certainly help you with that. It's more of a one-on-one basis.
Yeah, I love what you said about the co-op piece, Matt.
Right.
I think that's a serious challenge for a lot of people who do the work that we do, in the sense that, many of our budgets are a little bit more lean right now. And so wherever we can leverage a partner to get more bang for the buck with our dollars, it's become at least more important for our team, more so than ever before. And just getting creative with those types of partnerships, I think, is an important thing that you brought up.
Yes, I agree. And I think it's something that moving forward, we will definitely continue to see the need for, for a while. So being able to, begin to establish those relationships and take advantage of opportunities like your company is presenting, Matt, I think is a good thing for our industry.
Yeah, and I think the key ingredient here is utilizing our lodging team. They're the ones that have the relationship with the hotels. They can go out there and source those opportunities directly, and that relieves the burden from the destination. And then just pull together a nice campaign. I can tell you from just a couple of examples on my team. We've launched in Q3 and Q4 co-op campaigns in Chicago. That's a big market, of course, but Milwaukee. We just did a really large one in Nashville. I think Denver's on the docket. So it's a really popular product that just is really easy to participate in. And I think that's why, plus the results are really strong. So
one other thing I was
sorry,
just
I apologize for getting kicked out. This hybrid stuff is awesome. Hey, so as we kind of go in there, I think it's I want to shift gears a little bit in terms of the targeting outside of kind of the regional geography, that kind of the natural kind of first step, and see if you're identifying and looking at other, are you going broad and into a a small demographic or small geographic, or are you trying to go targeted into some more highly targeted demographic audiences? What's the balance?
that directed to Ed and Valerie? Or?
Yeah, I think for us, we have definitely gone, like I mentioned earlier, more highly targeted, identifying those, 1 to 3, pillars or things that, have been successful for us in the past. And then based on recent research, knowing the things that people are looking for, and then being very targeted in geographically in how we market and talk to those individuals who may be interested in visiting Macon. So for us, it's become even more targeted because, like I mentioned earlier, our resources are a little more limited than what they were 9 months or so ago.
Yeah, and for us, I mean, the geography that we're targeting is a little closer than usual, probably 75 miles from our destination, at least for the short term. We're taking baby steps. But we're also hearing from the lodging community that they'll take any business they can get, even if it's some of the closer in local business. And I only bring that up because our organization has been doing a lot more local, to your point, Will, marketing than maybe we had in the past. For example, we recently sponsored a restaurant week as well as a big RV show. So those are things that traditionally maybe we would have spent dollars further out, where we're trying to make sure even the local businesses can benefit from tourists.
So I'm really interested in the idea of near-term target identification versus long-term target market building. And I guess I wanted to know if either of you, Valerie or Ed, are kind of working on that concept. Right now, this is what we need, but we know that come next summer, we want to have a broader base on which to build. And what kind of strategies or what you're thinking about in terms of kind of near-term target market identification versus midterm and long-term.
So for us, obviously, near term is the highly targeted, like I mentioned in the previous question. But prior to the pandemic, we also, a lot of our advertising was very event based and focused. So from March to September, we had, major events and festivals, several each month during that time period. And so knowing now that all of that is, for the most part, non-existent, long term, medium term, and long term, we're, obviously monitoring, talking with our partners to see what their plans are. And nobody knows, again, we can't look into a crystal ball, but, hoping mid to long term by next spring and summer, some of those events and festivals will be coming back online. And then maybe we will be able to go back to some of what we were doing as far as targeting and advertising specific events prior to the pandemic. But those are some of our immediate and long-term goals that we're looking towards.
Yeah, and for us, just to add to that, we're certainly focused on the short term and the last quarter of this year, trying to finish strong, trying to highlight whatever we can to move the needle before the end of the fourth quarter. And it's great. I have to give you a plug, Will, to be able to come on to eTourism Summit and hear people like an Adam Sachs talk about the future of the group business, which is important for everybody on here. And I think our mindset is let's try to get any win we can here in the short term, but log into key webinars like this so that we can, predict the future as much as possible, see the forecast, hear from the experts like Matt, so that with limited resources, we can make more thoughtful decisions, which I think is what's going to separate the destinations here in the next 3 to 6 months, is doing a lot of listening and just making really thoughtful decisions on how we're going to allocate our limited resources.
Yeah, that's awesome. Matt, you've got clients obviously all over the world. What are you seeing in terms of their focus on near term, mid term, long term, or are we just focused on just getting through 2020?
It's different across the board. I think that our approach has always been like, let's test and learn. Like, we have the ability in real time, as I mentioned earlier, to kind of optimize out of, a target feeder market if it's not working for the destination, and we can shift things over. We're measuring results, right? We can see the bookings. But I would say for the most part, there's also, we have to stay pretty focused on the available inventory that we have access to across our different channels. So there may be a certain market that we have little of at this point, and we may have to shift away from that and focus on markets that are a little bit further out, or possibly just a feeder market that they haven't focused on before. So we're trying to be flexible. We come to the destination with recommendations. We don't tell them what to do. We just give them, here's an option. This is your goal. Here's option 2 if you're looking for that for media business, and we just try to structure it based on the feedback.
Right, and Ed, you brought up Adam Sachs. I mean, he kind of said, we're from now till May or first quarter of 21 is kind of survival mode, but really encouraging information starting on kind of the beginning of summer of 2021 and starting to grow. So I guess that would be kind of the looking back at an Adam Sachs, kind of the advice, right? It's take whatever you can get between now and April, and then be prepared to start targeting your more traditional core audiences and kind of going into summer of 21.
Yeah, I think the other piece that Matt covered earlier was the native content, which can be very influential to people. And looking at just trying new things, knowing it's a drive market. We've been doing some experimentation with wrapping some vehicles with advertising in certain markets, just knowing that there's more people on the road. So if there's a time to test new things as well, this is a good period for sort of test and control, if you will, as we prepare for that road ahead to when we can get back the big groups. And, that messaging strategy of conveying something really fun, but at the same time very safe, is a delicate balance, making sure we're showing people wearing masks, but also showing people having a great time. And so I think the best marketers are taking that very seriously.
Absolutely. I want to go back to Valerie on the events targeting, and you've done some amazing things in Macon, but knowing events are going to come back, it's going to take longer for the bigger events. Although maybe not. We're seeing a lot of fans in college football stadiums, so maybe they'll come back sooner than we sooner than we thought. But are you thinking of shifting strategy, or are you just going to continue to build on that for when the market comes back?
Yes, I mean, we're just thinking, just listening to our partners, looking at the research, and then just trying, as soon as we see that potential events may come back online, doing shorter drive targeted advertising and marketing to those people who may be interested in attending those events. But, just really doing active listening, and, as soon as we hear that some of our popular events will come back online, then our plan is to do more targeted short distance drive to those people that may be interested in coming.
One of the things that I have thought about is that from all the great research that our partners are putting out for the industry, it's clear that people that are comfortable going out to dinner are more likely to take the first step and go on a excursion or go to an attraction, and then the people that have gone to an attraction or gone out and about are more likely to venture a little bit further afield. So, have you guys put any initiatives targeting people that have spent money at a attraction, or have that are actively spending money outside of their destination to target?
Do you want to take that one, Valerie?
Yeah, sure. Yes, we have. So like I mentioned earlier, we are actively running a campaign now and targeting people who have visited similar music attractions. And we are targeting them and showing them and communicating with them, letting them know what we have that's similar in Macon. So we've done that specifically around music and are getting some great results with that.
Yeah, and we're also, just trying to stay on the pulse of things that maybe haven't been open but are opening with more hours now, and just pushing a lot of the various attractions that are open right now here in the Northeast. And that's a thing that's changing as we go, but making sure that visitors know that we are open, and pushing those businesses that are doing it in a safe manner is really important for us.
Absolutely, and it's clearly the opportunity to try to build some momentum. I mean, we've kind of momentum came to a stop, and you're kind of looking for any momentum builders. Have you again, Ed and Valerie, have you had success within your communities of identifying and building more kind of coalitions and kind of helping to target some of their past attendees or their past guests, rather than kind of going it on your own at the 20,000 foot level?
Yes, I think our community, like never before, has our lockstep together as far as trying to help each other and bring people back to the local attractions and restaurants. With the Making It Safe pledge, it wasn't just something that was spearheaded by our organization, Visit Macon, but it was spearheaded by several other organizations within downtown Macon. Some focused just on local restaurants and businesses, some focus on just the business community. So through examples like that, and other ways, we're coming up on our Macon Burger Week. We're all finding new and ways for people to be able to know that we're promoting our city safely, but we're open for business, and we are a welcoming community for you to come if you would like to come and visit.
Well said. I can't really say it better than that. but one thing to add. I mean, I think as destination marketing organizations, we try to bring more value to the partners if we can somehow bring them together. And that's one of the things we've been trying to do. I mentioned earlier the restaurant week, the RV show, and it just so happened they were happening at the same time for 10 days straight. And those two groups didn't know about each other's dates. And as the destination marketer, bringing them together on a phone call so that we could cross promote all three of our organizations simultaneously brought more value than if we had been marketing ourselves solo. So I think that's another important thing to look for right now is, are there like-minded businesses that could play off of each other, and we can be sort of that leader that can bring them together.
Awesome. Great examples. You know, one of the things that makes me so happy to work in the destination marketing space is the incredible sense of camaraderie and ability to share and help each other come to the table. And, you know, the sponsors and the vendors in this space have been extraordinary. Expedia Group Media Solutions providing this kind of information up front, but all the research that's been played out to really help us is amazing. So I want to make sure that we shout out to a big thank you to Expedia Group Media Solutions and all the partners, from the research providers and the vendors that are out really even funding that. So thanks to all the sponsors that have made this happen. I want to leave on kind of one last question for all of you, and that is, if you only had $10 and you wanted to go out and try to identify somebody that had never been to your destination, what direction would you go? If you wanted to just look at something different, kind of not our traditional marketing, but if there was an audience that you would love to attract to your destination, or what would that be? Something new for 21.
For us, it would probably be trying to put more of an emphasis on sports groups, knowing that they might be one of the first bigger groups of tournaments to come back in terms of group business. And I think that's something that we haven't focused on too much here that we would like to do.
I would say for us, it would be the art community. And I think, you know, we are starting to move into that space because we are emphasizing the outdoors, but we have many outdoor murals located throughout the city, beautiful works of art, and just highlighting that, and just our, just in general, our strong arts community.
Awesome. And Matt, from your perspective, is there a green shoot, an audience that you think is out there that's ready to travel, that, you know, should be a first audience to go after before they come back?
Well, I always say it's people like me. Like I'm willing to try anything, really. I've got a family. As long as there's like safety protocols, I think that's really building confidence. Like if I know that hotels or airports or anyone is taking the right precautions, like I'm willing to do it. So I think my demographic is a good one to go after.
Awesome. Well, Matt, thank you again so much. Valerie, I really appreciate your insight, and thank you for contributing to this. Ed, as always, thank you for your support of eTourism Summit. And we've got an amazing week scheduled this week, and then 2 live dates. Don't forget, November 9th and 10th, live and in person in Orlando at Universal Studios. Hopefully we'll be able to see you there as well. But thank you all for an amazing hour. Really appreciate your support, and have a fantastic week. We'll see you back here.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great day.